Finding out about other quilters was limited to reading about them in books, magazines, seeing them at quilt shows, or word of mouth. Nowadays, with social media, whenever we want, we can ooh and ah over quilts and quilters from around the globe. When I started quilting, one of the first quilters to impact me was today's guest, Timna Tarr. Her bright and bold use of color, texture, and pattern had me returning to her quilts over and over again. So grab your sewing and a cup of tea, and here's my interview with Timna Tarr. Hello, Timna. Welcome to the show. Whereabouts in the world are you coming to us from?
I am in Western Massachusetts, about an hour and a half west of Boston.
Are you originally from that area?
No, I grew up in the Midwest, mostly in Kansas, and I went to high school in upstate New York, and I have been here since college. So it's by far the longest I've ever lived anywhere. But I kind of feel like I don't even feel like my roots are definitely Midwestern.
Your name is quite interesting, Timna. Whereabouts did it come from?
I often start with that because people ask me about it all the time. So Timna is an old Hebrew name. It's in Genesis. So-and-so begat, Timna the concubine. So you can read into that what you would like. Timna is also a national park in Israel. So it is a park that was originally copper mines. So it's also a place.
Well, I was looking it up. I also found out that it's the name of an important part on the old incense trade routes.
Correct. That is that copper mine area. And it's funny because I only met one other Timna in my life, but my husband has Israeli cousins. And when I met one of them, she just rolled right with my name, and she's an archaeologist who digs in Timna National Park and had a grad student named Timna. So it's like a much more common name there than here.
But Tarr is from England, right?
Wow, you've done your research. Yes, Tarr is from England. I didn't know any Tarrs growing up either, but now that I've been on the East Coast, there are a lot of Tarrs because it was a seafaring name between, Maine and Virginia. There's a good number of Tarrs, but I'm not related to any of them. Maybe, but not closely.
I have always been interested in names. I have such a plain name, Karen Brown. There's thousands of us. We could start a whole Facebook community. So having a beautiful name like Timna, I was definitely drawn into it.
Well, I named my child a name that everyone has heard before so that they don't have to ask, how do you spell it, et cetera, et cetera. It's not the most common name, but it is not an unheard of name because I didn't want to give her that burden as she got older.
So you started making quilts after college. Were they traditional pieced quilts?
They were very traditional piece. That was like all I knew because I grew up with quilts. My mom's a quilter, my grandma quilted, my great-great-grandparents worked as a team and quilted. He would cut fabric and she sewed it together. So quilts have always been part of my life, and I thought everybody quilted. It was shocking to me when I learned that there were people who had never seen a quilt or didn't sleep under quilts. So they were all functional, utilitarian quilts. I will say, though, I did not use a pattern because I didn't know that was a thing either. Like I would learn, I knew the blocks, and you can put lots of blocks together to get a quilt. So I'd never used a pattern until in the last probably 10 years when I wanted to make something very specific for somebody.
What did you study at college?
Art history. So I don't have a studio art background, which I get asked about a lot. And I, in fact, didn't want to do any hands-on art in college. I was like very doing the history part of it was what was interesting to me. But I think that really did train my eye because, you sit in class and you look at slides of art and talk about it and write essays about comparing and contrasting. And that really, really trained my eye into seeing things visually and to see composition and proportion and color, all those things that you need to make a dynamic quilt.
Your quilts are all beautiful stories of color. So what comes first when you make a quilt? Is it the blocks or the layout?
Oh, always the blocks. I don't do the layout until I have created all of the blocks. And I love the puzzle of not knowing what I'm going to get at the end. So that's probably part of the reason why I don't use patterns is because I don't want to know what it's going to look like at the end. I'm so bored in that process. Like I like the magic of what's going to happen. We don't know. So one thing that I always do for my own self is I will make as many blocks I need to make or that I'm until I'm tired of making blocks. And then I then do the layout. And my rule for myself is that I have to use all of the blocks that I made. So there might be some stinkers in there and I just make them work. And so that puzzle is the part that I find really intriguing. So I can spend months making blocks and then 4 hours laying it out. And it's all about that dopamine of the 4 hours that gets me through those months.
I actually find the layout of the quilt a really heavy mental load. Like I always think, oh, it'll take me an hour or so, but I'm surprised at how long it takes before I'm happy.
Yeah, sometimes it does. Sometimes it does. I will say I'm pretty fast at the layout, and it is, I think, because when I was making a lot of quilts on my living room floor, laying it out on the floor, and I had cats and a kid, I would do it during nap time. Like everybody got shut in a room, and I'd do the layout, and that was it. I didn't have a lot of time to futz around and debate. So I'm pretty fast at it because sometimes you can lay it out and keep moving things around and it doesn't ever get better. It's just different. Sometimes it gets better though. So, there is a trade-off, but often you're just moving things around.
You were one of the first quilters I found when I joined Instagram. And I think you had just found the Mississippi map with the meandering river and all the oxbow lakes.
Mhm.
Um, so, where did you find the map and when did you decide to turn it into a quilt?
A friend of mine sent me the image. Megan Farkas, who's a quilter in New Hampshire, I think. She sent that to me and said, "I think it needs to be a quilt." And I said, "Yeah, you're right." And so it was just her sending me that image, and it was exactly the challenge I needed at that point in my life because I tend to only work on quilts that I see as a challenge. Like I don't want an easy quilt. And so at that point, that was what I needed. The image was of 1944. The Army Corps of Engineers mapped the Mississippi River and all of its ancient courses. So it looks like kind of a bowl of spaghetti. It's all these different colors intertwined. But really what it is, it's the old paths of the river depicted in different colors.
So, did you follow the legend with the colors that you chose? Or did you
No,
make it up as we went
I
along?
made up the colors and I actually combined the paths because there were twice as many paths as what you see on my quilt because that was just one step too far. So I combined them a bit.
How long did it take you to make that quilt?
Oh gosh, I hate that question. I never know. It didn't take as long as you would think, probably a few months, probably, because I was invested and obsessed. And so when that happens, I can move pretty fast.
And how many different techniques did you use to make that quilt? Is it just applique or?
Yeah, it's mostly applique, except I didn't applique on a background. So I was kind of making the puzzle pieces and appliquing them together. So it's almost like hand piecing, but more of an applique technique. I don't know how to describe it. It was mostly applique. Let's put it that way.
And I saw that you did a second one. Was that just some leftover energy?
No, I did not want to make a second one, actually. I did it because I think it was a SAQA exhibit at the New England Quilt Museum. Was doing, they were, I don't even remember what the topic was, but it was different techniques that quilters use. And they asked me to make a quilt based on that. The dimensions were 30 by 50 inches long, maybe something like that. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And I found it really, really hard, mostly
Sure.
because of the size restriction, because I rarely work with a size restriction. And so that was very challenging for me. It was easier to do the second time because I already knew how to do it, already having done it.
What did you do after you finished school with your art degree?
What did I do? Nothing. I worked as a secretary. I worked as a bookkeeper, and I bought a long arm machine. So I long armed for clients for about 15 years. And I started in 2001. You know, there were not a lot of long armers there, and it was kind of sacrilegious to be machine quilting quilts at that time. What I really, really learned from that, and I think that's informed my work now tremendously, is I saw really well-pieced quilts. I saw quilts that were not well-pieced. I saw every good trick and bad trick that quilters would use, but it also really trained me on color because you have to lay out the thread to find the color of thread that's going to work best on the quilt. And that really trained my color eye more than I think anything else I've ever done.
I've actually found that quite fascinating. The thread color that works the best is often something that you wouldn't even expect.
That's absolutely true. Yeah. And sometimes it's like just, you know, if you're using a red, sometimes purple looks best, or, you know, you just never know until you try it.
Now, I think the next quilt of yours that got on my radar was this lovely mosaic of a young child with a stinky fish. Was it? Is that
Yes.
your child or your niece or nephew or a neighbor?
It's my cousin's child. So, yeah, Kira is her name, and she was 2.5 when that photo was taken. It looks like she's squinting at the stinky fish, but she's actually squinting at the sun. But no matter what, it's just a really funny photograph. And so my grandma showed me that picture, and I couldn't stop laughing. And I was like, I got to make a quilt of this. That's what I did. It was one of those things where I didn't know how to do it. I had made all the map quilts, and in making the map quilts, what I would do is take the image of the map, blow it up to that size of the quilt, and use that as the pattern. So that's what I decided to do for this girl. And I gridded it off in a 2-inch grid. And I thought I'd use that old art technique of transferring one box in a grid to the quilt box of the quilt grid. Because I'm a block-based quilter. You know, I like to make blocks. And so that's what I did. There's machine applique, prepared edge machine applique within each block. It's always hard to describe when you don't have visuals, but I really was looking at the artist Chuck Close's work when I started this process, and his work is faces that are gridded off. So that was also very influential in when I was thinking about how to break it down into small pieces.
So is that quilt 0 in your series of mosaic quilts?
That is the first one. Yeah, because I never know how to do anything small at the beginning. I always start with the hardest thing and then backtrack to figure out how to make it easier.
So in these mosaics, have you been working with any other fabrics other than quilting cotton?
Not really. I mean, occasionally if I have a silk or, you know, something in my scrap bin that's the right color, because it's really, if the color and the texture is right, then I'll use it. But really, I'm just using quilting cottons because they're easy to use, and I have a lot of them. That's really the only reason.
Do you buy your fabric as fat quarters or yardage, or how do you work?
I buy my fabric in quarter or a third of a yard cuts, and I will buy just what I like when I see it because, you know, fabric goes in and out of style, colors go in and out of style. So sometimes I'll walk into the store and I'll come out with all yellows or all reds because that's just what I'm thinking about that day. I also have a pretty good scrap selection, and that is because my friends will say, I've got a bag of scraps. Do you want them? And I always say yes, because what they buy is different than what I buy, and it really just supplements and enhances my collection.
That's nice. I'm actually picking up a bag of scraps from a friend tomorrow.
Oh.
I'm so excited to get them.
I know. It's so fun to dig through and see what's in there and just to see something different. So,
Yeah, as you say, they have a different color palette than you do, and they'll just complement what you got.
yeah, I don't like blue very much, like true blue. But I do use it a lot in my portrait quilts because people look good against, or white people look good against blue. So a couple of my friends are like, I've got blue scraps. Do you want the blue one? Yes, I want the blue ones.
So your mosaic quilt, you You expanded it into classes, and you have a book out. It came out, I believe, in 2022,
Correct. Yeah.
sort of at the end of the, well, at least for us, that was probably people were getting their inoculations at that point for COVID. Was that a COVID project or was that delayed because of COVID?
It was totally a COVID project. I was approached in the spring of 21 if I wanted to write a book, and I had already done the online class, and I'd been thinking a lot about the stitch mosaics. And so when I was approached, I was like, I have nothing else going on. Like, if I'm going to write a book, this is the time. And so I had it done by December, and I moved in December. So I worked really hard that summer on the book, packed my house, packed my studio, moved.
Sorry, when a publisher asks you to make a book, do they give you any kind of guidelines or information on how they want it laid out, or is it all you?
I had gone through the book process with a couple of other publishers in years past, not to the point of signing a contract, but to the point of really getting into discussions with them. And they all work differently in my experience. So this one, which was with Landauer, they asked me if I was interested in writing a book. They didn't have a suggestion on a topic. And I said, yes, this is what I'm interested in. I gave them an outline and a layout, and I pretty much did what I don't want to say I did what I wanted to, but they pretty much followed my lead. They changed some things and moved some things around, but really they followed my lead on this project. I've never approached them about a second book, so I don't know if it would be the same thing, with a second book, but it was for me a pretty, I don't want to say easy. It wasn't an easy process, but it was a low friction process for me.
So do you have another one in mind? Are you going to do it again?
I have one in my brain, but I don't know if I have time in my life. So I'm afraid to put it out there until I'm ready to commit to it.
I was looking at your calendar. You've got a pretty full schedule. Are you a full-time quilter now?
Yeah, and I have been for a long time. Yeah, this is my full-time gig. And the great thing about being self-employed is some days I don't work at all because it's a Tuesday and I don't want to. But some days then I work, many, many hours, or I work almost every weekend because that's when people can take classes. So that's the downside of doing it, is that my weekends, if I want to have a weekend off, I have to really block it off on my calendar so I don't overschedule myself.
When did you become full-time? What was the decision that made you go there?
Well, when my kid was little, I was long-arming part-time and then being a mom, the rest of the time. And as she got older and I could travel a little bit more, and when our personal life became a little more flexible. So I'd say she's probably when she was maybe in junior high. And then my husband started working from home, went remote during COVID. And that really freed up a lot of my ability to take on more jobs because I wasn't the primary stay-at-home parent all the time.
Right. Never thought of that. Yeah, people that work at home can now take some of the load of just unloading the dishwasher and things like that.
Exactly, or taking her to practice or whatever that doesn't take that much time, but you can't do it when you're not there.
Or is there a big push now to get people back into the workplace there?
Yes, but fortunately for him, because he loves working from home, he's like the ultimate introvert. His contract is stay home, so he's, as far as I know, he'll be home for a while.
My number 3 son is work from home, and so is his partner. So they do a lot of moving around because they're able to work wherever they are. But I have found in amongst my acquaintances, there is a very big push to get people back into the office. But people are kicking and screaming going.
I mean, I get it. I get it. People want to be in the office because they need that collaborative face-to-face kind of stuff, but and not every job needs that. So
yeah. I find, well, just even people are enjoying being able to get up and make themselves a cup of coffee or, start working their pajamas or whatever.
But Yeah, I know when Rich has an on-camera meeting when he has like a collared shirt on and his basketball shorts on, so he's like only seen from the top up.
So you've got a quilt on your table there. Is that a new quilt or one that you were that will be a
Back
teaching
it
it?
up.
Yeah.
It's a rooster. I've been doing a whole series of big rooster quilts. They're 45 inches square. I just took it off the long arm right before I got on the call with you. So it is there ready to be squared up and bound.
How do you quilt these mosaic quilts? Are you following a pattern or are you just doing straight lines?
I almost never use straight lines. And these, because they're done with 2-inch squares and the squares are set on point, in the background behind the animal or whatever the portrait is, I do a grid. Okay, I do straight lines. Take it back. I do a 1-inch grid in the background, and then on the faces or like this is a rooster, so on the feathers, I kind of just enhance the image. So I'll quilt in feathers, or if it's a person's face, I'll put in the contours of the face. I will say I've seen it done, in classes or, people who've done it from my technique and they've just stitched in the ditch and it looks beautiful. You don't need to do much more than that if you don't want to.
What is your favorite quilt that you've made so far?
I'm glad you asked me that today because I answered this question yesterday and had to like think about
Answer.
it. I made a quilt in maybe 2012 or 14, something like that, of George Washington's head repeated something like 400 times.
Yes.
So it was just a little circle of George Washington's appliqued into a square. That quilt, so first of all, I'm a political junkie. I follow politics. I'm always interested in what's happening. So I thought I'd make like a really kind of political quilt. And it turns out that I just wanted a funny George Washington quilt. And that quilt now hangs in a law firm in Chicago. And I think that's like the perfect place for George to be hanging. I call it E pluribus unum.
I saw that. Did you digitally print the fabric or was it an existing fabric?
It was an existing fabric. I bought a yard of it originally. And then when I figured out what I wanted to do with it, I had to buy 7 more yards. So no one else wants George Washington fabric because it was $2.99 a yard. And I wish I had more.
So did they do a series with other founding fathers or was it just George Washington?
Just George Washington. And I think it was a Civil War reproduction fabric. And I've bought other president fabric and it doesn't have quite the same charm. So I've never used it. It just is sitting in a drawer.
You say that you came from a long line of quilters. Do you ever get together with your other quilter relatives and make group quilts or quilt together?
Not really. Most of my family doesn't live near me. They're mostly in Nebraska, but my mom does live near me and she quilts a lot. She makes a lot of quilts that she donates, or yeah, she donates almost everything that she makes. But when my grandmother died, she was a very prolific quilter. My mom found something like 30 quilts that were either almost finished, they were tops, just needed a binding, they were pretty well completed. So between my mom and I, we quilted and bound and finished all of those quilts and gave them to, like, I have a bajillion cousins with their kids and, second cousins, all that stuff. We disseminated all those quilts.
What kind of label do you put on your quilts?
I always label them, and it's always just a fabric pen, handwritten, stitched it on, because by the time you get to the label, I'm done. Like, I don't want to think about it anymore, but I know it's important to put it on. So, and I'm always glad when I do, because I often have to go back and look at the quilt, see when it was made or whatever. So I'll just handwrite whatever I need on there. Every once in a while, like with the Mississippi quilt and of the one that I call Up Close and Personal, which is the girl with the fish, those I had the original photo that I used printed, and I used that for the label and then hand wrote the information around it because I thought it was important to document the origin of the quilt.
Now, you're doing an awful lot of traveling for quilting right now. What's the farthest that you've gone to teach?
Oh, the Bahamas? I don't know if that was the farthest, but that was the most was the most fun.
The one that you needed your passport for.
Exactly. Yeah, so I've taught all over the United States, and I actually love doing that because I love traveling. I love seeing different places. This lets me do that without, someone else is paying for me to travel for the most part. But I will say this last year I've pulled way back and am not traveling as much because I kind of got a little burnt out last year. More than a little. I was burnt out. So I knew I needed to spend some more time at home and just be in my own space. So I've pulled back on the travel a lot. So this summer I'm doing 4 week-long classes. And so I'll just go and I do it's one a month. And that way I'm gone for a week and then I'm home for 3 weeks and then gone. And that feels much more manageable than here, there, back and forth, like I had been doing.
And I'm at one of them, going to the Gathering of Stitches in Maine.
I can't wait to go to that.
Well, the funny thing is, I was looking at your website and I saw that's where you were teaching. And then I found a sushi, I'm not going to pronounce his last name wrong, Futasua. He's also teaching Sashiko. So I thought, well, okay, I'm in.
Well, he's for sure the draw for this this class because I've met a couple people who are going to be at the same session that we are, and one woman said to me, "No offense, I'm not coming for you," and I was like, "It's okay, I totally understand. Like I get it. Like
I'm coming for you."
Okay, thanks, but even you don't have to lie. It's okay. I understand.
He was just a bonus. He was the one that just sort of, should I drive? Because it's a 10-hour drive. Should I go all the way to Maine? Yes.
Are you going to drive?
I'm pretty sure I'm going to drive because I've got to bring my sewing machine and supplies. So I'll probably go. I'm in Toronto, so I'll probably head up to Montreal, see my husband's family's there, and then go straight across. It's been a long time since I've been to Maine.
It's beautiful, and the bugs will be bad, but we'll just bring our bug spray.
It's August, so they'll not be as bad as they will be in right now.
Right now, yeah.
What is your favorite part of quilting? What stage is your favorite part?
I like every stage and find every stage annoying. They're all like long and tedious, but I like all of it, and I like that it changes as you go along. Honestly, I've just finished a couple of quilts. I put the binding, sewed it onto the front, and it needs to be hand stitched to the back. And I'm really looking forward to watching really bad reality television and just hand stitching some bindings on. Well, it's really hot here right now, so I can just be cool and hand stitch some binding. I'm really looking forward to that.
Now you're in your studio here. Is your studio at home or is it off your property?
It is at home. We bought a house 3 or 4 years ago because it had space for a studio. So I had my studio in the house for many years, and then I had a studio outside the house once I had just outgrown our space. And so now I'm back in the house. So what you see here is the main kind of space, and then my long arm is in another room. So I have 2 spaces in the house.
So how often do you have to say no to things that come up?
I'm getting better at it. I'm saying it a lot more than I used to. Actually, I do say no a lot because my calendar fills up. And so I have really learned I need to protect some of my time. So I don't have to say yes to everything anymore. And I actually have a quote that says something like, "Oh yeah, creative people say yes until they have enough work that they can say no." And I think that is really kind of accurate.
I was speaking with Pamela Weeks of the New England Quilt Museum. You mentioned them earlier, and I think they had an exhibit of your quilts at that time.
2 years ago, they did a whole show of my quilts, which was amazing. I've never seen that many of them in that kind of setting. And it was up for several months, so lots of people could see it. But what was really fun for me is they borrowed quilts that I didn't own anymore. And so I got to see, like George Washington was there. I hadn't seen it in a while, and a couple others that was really, really great to see. And what I also really loved about it is, Pamela hung the show in a way that I wouldn't have hung it. And it really showed off the quilt. So to have somebody else's eye literally curate it and put it together was really, really fun and special.
Yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah, having them hung differently than you would.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there was one wall where there were maybe four or five quilts, and I didn't think of them as a series or as them working together. But when you saw them, they're like, oh, I see the through line between these four quilts.
have you had a exhibit of your quilts anyplace else?
I'd had a series of 12 barnyard animals, which I call the Noble Menagerie. They were all barnyard animals. They were all 37 inches square, and I conceived of those as a series, pretty early on, thinking I wanted to see them hung together. And they hung at the International Quilt Festival in Houston as an exhibit, and then they were at the Texas Quilt Museum. I had seen my quilts hung together in other ways, but I had never come up with a series intending for them to hang together. So seeing it from conception to the finished point, it was good. I always need a goal, and that was like a goal to get to.
So are you done with barnyard animals now?
I'm not done with roosters. I have 3 roosters mostly done, and I just printed 5 more images. If I do them all, there'll be 8 roosters in the next series, which I'm trying to come up with a great, funny, punny name for the series because I love a good punny name.
They are just so wonderful seeing them together. It's amazing how we give emotions to animals. And the cute one, the sly one, the snarky one. And they all
Yeah.
seem to have such personality.
The one I just took off the long arm, he looks very worried right now. And as I said to a group last night, it might be because we're in a worried kind of time, and it's okay. Maybe he can just be worried.
You're working in series and you're doing a lot of animals, and sometimes the animal is the same. How do you keep yourself motivated?
I'm a little bit obsessive, and I'm also stubborn. So if I set my mind to something, I'm gonna do it. If I don't set my mind to something, may or may not happen. So it's more stubbornness more than anything else.
Where are you finding the pictures or the ideas for your roosters?
So I was in Hawaii in January because it was my 50th birthday. So we went to Hawaii, lived and stayed with my sister and brother-in-law who have a house there, and the roosters are everywhere. They're just like running around on the beach. So some of them are some photos are from there. And then I also live not far from where the Northeastern Poultry Congress takes place, which is the annual chicken show for the Northeast. And it's always my birthday weekend, so I make my family go and I take a lot of pictures of chickens. So I have a pretty extensive photo collection of show chickens, which sounds ridiculous, but it is true. And you know what? I went to a fabric shop. We were on the island of Kauai. There was a quilt shop there, and I went in and they had some of my fabric on the shelf. So I said to the owner, I was like, "Oh, this is my fabric," and she said, "Did you make the fabric?" Because one of my lines was all chicken portraits. She's like, "Was that yours?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "I should have bought more of it. People love the chickens here." I was like,
Have you
yes.
passed on your love of quilting to your daughter?
She wants nothing to do with it, which is fine. But I did catch her embroidering the other day. So there's something happening there. She's very artistic, and she draws. She's a beautiful artist, illustrator. But she's in college right now and does not want to take any more art classes because she wants it to be fun and not a job. So I think she's learned some things from living with an artist.
So you've got these classes and lectures and everything. What new thing are you working on?
I have a line of fabric coming out in July. It's called Neighborhood Association. It's through Studio E Fabrics, and it will be in shops soon. It is a panel of a couple of donkeys and coordinating prints. And so the prints, I think, some of them are really kind of funny. Some of them are really pretty. So hopefully there'll be something in there for everybody. I have another line that will be released or announced for purchase for the shops at Quilt Market in October.
Besides your book, do you have lectures and workshops?
I do, yeah. I do them all. I do them in person. I do them online. You can find them on my website. I actually love that we can now do them online on Zoom because I can show things that I can't necessarily travel with. I either don't own the quilt anymore or it's too big or, whatever. So that has been really beneficial in being able to expand some workshop offerings.
Okay, so if people want to contact you, how do they get a hold of you?
My website is just my name, timnatarr.com. I'm on Instagram at Timna Tarr and Facebook, Timna Tarr Quilts. So that's the great advantage of having an unusual name is you can always get the handle that goes along with it.
Well, thank you very much, Timna, for being on the show. It's been delightful catching up with you.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Timna Tarr. I can't wait to take her class this summer. If you are interested in taking one of her workshops, purchasing her book, or booking a lecture, I'll have a link to her website and social media in the video notes below. Next time you're in your sewing room, be sure to have Karen's Quilt Circle playing in the background. I have interviewed so many amazing, interesting people on this show. Let one inspire you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.